going forward in our Shiurim on Daat Elokim. We left off on Daf Chav Ches in the second paragraph. Basically, we have been discussing the Oyers of the Asnaim, and we had discussed how the Oyers of the Asnaim are from the Sag, but they're pulled from the Ab, or the timing of the Sag. And we explained that the Ab of the Sag itself is divided up into a Sag Ma Ben, and actually it's divided up into an Ab Sag Ma Ben, because the Ab are the Oyers of the Asnaim, which the Rav doesn't discuss. And the Sag Ma Ben of the Ab of Sag are going to be the Oyers of the Asnaim, the Oyers of the Chayim, and the Oyers of the Peh. We explained yesterday that the Oyers of the Asnaim are Oyers that come out of the left ear and the right ear, Kaviyachol of Adam Kadmon. The ones that come out of the right are Esra Oyers, and those are going to be considered the Esra spheres of the Makifim. And the ones that come out of the left are going to be the Esra spheres of the Panimium. And we explained yesterday the union of Panimium Makif. Also, on the top of Chav Ches, in the first paragraph, we explained that the Panimi and the Makif are not going to meet. And since the Panimi and the Makif are not going to meet, then maybe you're not going to have a Batisha or a Hakah. Well, his Lashon is Hakah, which is the same thing as the Batisha. Therefore, you will not have a Havayas Kli. Because we explained yesterday that Ayadei, the Batisha, that allows the Or Hagas to separate itself from the Or Zach. The Or Hagas being the potential Kli within the Or. And since the potential Kli is not Yotzim Mekoich L'Poil from the Or itself, Amela, it's not going to be Megula at this point. It's the same thing is going to happen. We're going to see Be'ezus Hashem in the Oyers Chayim. There also will not be Havayas of the Kli. And only when we get down to the Oyers Peh, because from the Peh, we know there's only one orifice as opposed to the Chayim, where there are actually two nostrils, just like there are two ears. At that point, we're going to have Havayas of Kli, because we'll be able to separate the Or Hagas from the Or Zach. And Be'ezus Hashem, when we get to the Oyers of the Peh, which we also call the Oyers of the Akudim, we're going to explain this in more detail. Just one more thing before we go forward on this union of Kalim and this union of Oyers. Because remember we explained that the union from the Or is what animates, and it's the Panemius, whereas the Kli is synonymous with what we call the Chitzonius, because that's what allows for the Gili to take place, and that's Magvilit. And that's based on our original Shroshim of what we call the Chasadim and the Gavuros. Because the Or will be the Bechina of Chasadim, which wants to be in his Pashat. But if it keeps on being in his Pashat forever, there can't be a Gili, definitionally. The Gili can only take place if it's Mugvil somehow, and that would be the Gavuros. I once saw a beautiful mashal to explain this concept, and I like to say it because it makes a lot of sense. It's in one of Rabbi Tatz's Sefer. He gave a mashal like this, where he explained that a peasant once did a favor for a king, and the king decided to do him back, give him a present for that. So what was the present? He took two stakes, two poles, and he put one in the ground, and he gave the peasant the other pole, and he said, start walking. And he said that when you feel that it's time, you can do is you put down the other pole, and all the land in between I'll give you. So the peasant thinks that's pretty good. So he keeps on, so he starts walking. So after about an hour, he thinks, wow, I got like about 2 miles already here. That's like more land than I'll ever use in my entire lifetime. So maybe at this point it's worth to put it down. But then he thinks to himself, well, why should I put it down here? Let me walk another hour. If I walk another hour, I'll have another 2 miles. So he keeps on walking another hour. Now he has 4 miles. So he thinks to himself, well, maybe it's now time to put it down now. But he says, now, why should I do it now? I can keep on going. And so he keeps on going and going and going, and he never stops. So in essence, even though this peasant thinks he has something, but really he has nothing, because he has pure potential, but he has no actualization at all of that potential. Rabbi Tatz in his Sefer was using this mashal to explain why people don't want to get married, because of the modern machalo of people waiting and waiting and waiting till their 30s and sometimes their 40s to get married, because they always feel there's something going to be better just around the corner. And they don't realize that Kozman, they don't lock themselves in. Kozman, there's no Kli. Mela, there's not going to be a Gili at all. So in essence, they have nothing. Like this peasant who has nothing. It's Kaviochel is the same way here with the Or. The Kozman, the Or is not Mugvul. It's Bechinas Ein Sof or Or Ein Sof. And there is no Gili. There's the total potential, and it will have within it every potential that can be. But Sof Kol Sof, it cannot come to any actualization until it has the Kli. And that's what the Gavuras do. The Gavuras, what they do is they bind the Chasadim and they make it that the Chasadim can be poil and can act. One more thing we have to discuss. This union of Kelim. Now, the Mechaber here, who's quoting the Rav, is saying that at the level of the Asnaim, these Oyers of Asnaim, there are no Kelim. At the level of the Chayim, there also are going to be no Kelim, we're going to see. Only at the level of Peh and Peh Lamata, at that point there'll be Kelim. But the emesis is very difficult to understand, because the truth is, the Makom Ponei itself, as opposed to the Ari and Sefer Makif, is a Kli. Because anything that's movable definitionally is a Kli. Adam Kadmon has a Kli. Because by definition, if we could describe a Panimis of Adam Kadmon and a Chitzonis of Adam Kadmon, Panimis will be what's inside the Kli, and Chitzonis is what is outside the Kli, definitionally. Because without a Kli, there's no way you can be machalik between Panimis and Chitzonis. Not only that, but Stamazoi, this whole Inyan of saying that there's Oris Makifim and Oris Panimium. Again, without a Kli, what's Shaykh Panimi and what's Shaykh Makif? So the Leshem Shaboy V'Achaloma, he deals with this, and he gives a tremendous insight in what exactly it means a Kli. He says because again, there's two bechinas in a Kli. There's a bechina in the Kli mitzad its own or, but there's a bechina in the Kli mitzad giving over to the next oilam. Because the general principle is that the chitzonius of a higher oilam will become the panemius of a lower oilam. We've had this concept before when we described the relationship between the Kav and Ak. The Kav being Kavyochel, the lowest bechina of the Ori and Sefer Makif, and the Ak being the highest bechina of the Makom Ponei. So the same thing you have. So in other words, like this. Imagine, let's say, a very great Rosh Hashiva, a tremendous Goyen in Torah. So if he were to give a shir, you probably wouldn't be able to chop it. So even though he's trying to give over, and he's trying to give mitzvah his chitzonius, but Sef Kol Sef his chitzonius is going to be larger than your panemius. So we wouldn't call it a kli. We would call even his chitzonius, we would call it really or. So the Leshem explains that Avada Ak has a kli. It has to. And Avada, the system of Asnaim and the system of Chaitim also has Kalim to it. Otherwise, if it wouldn't have Kalim, you couldn't talk in terms of Esser spheres. You couldn't talk because each sphere being distinct. Because the only reason why it's distinct is because of Kalim. And the only reason why you could have a Pinimin and Markov is Mitzad Kalim. But those are Kalim only Mitzad itself. It's Kalim to be Mugvul its own or, because everything after the Tzimtzum Ulamata is going to have a Bechinas of Kalim, definitionally, because it's in the Makom Ponei. When we say it has no kelim, it has no kelim in order that we can be typhus to it, because its chitzonis is higher than our panemius already. Again, it's like that. It's like a tremendous tzaddik. His averis are going to be, his yerida is going to be higher than our panemius. Mostly, you take a person who normally learns 15 hours a day, and one day he only learns 13 hours. Well, that would be greater than most people's panemius. So therefore, even though the chitzoni is copy of that person, but it would be greater than the panemius of someone else. So since it's greater than the panemius of someone else, we would call even the chitzoni a bechinas of or. Because klapios it is or, because we can't look at it as a kli, because we can't be typhus that mokim. But Mashiach mitzad the tzaddik himself, it would be a chitzoni is klapiyim. So that's what we're saying over here. Ak mitzad itself has kalim. The kav mitzad itself has kalim, because otherwise it wouldn't be mugvul. The ois of the Asnaim, the ois of the Chaitim have kalim mitzad themselves. But they don't have kalim by which they can give over, or not so much to give over, but so much that we can be makabel, where we live. Mashiach when we're going to be moving into the ois of the peh, which we call a kudim, there at that point the kli will develop whereby we can be typhus that, because we're going to see Besas Hashem Yisbarach that the ois of the kudim are the shrashim for Atzilus. And we live in Atzilus. We don't live in Atzilus. Our Gilead Alakus is coming from Atzilus. So since our Gilead, we live in Asiyah. Since our Gilead Alakus is going to be coming from Atzilus, so Mamela, that's it, and that's where our Shaykhs to, because that's where we're typhus to Kaddosh Baruch Hu. So Kaviyachol, the shorish of that Gilead will be up in a Kudim. So mitzad that, we have a Shaykhs to a Kudim, and mitzad that, we say a Kudim has a Kli.
When you say we, you mean one level below where you're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes. Mashiach, when we're dealing in ois of Chaitim and ois of the Asnaim, we're going to see that there are no kelim there. The reason being is because they're so much higher than we are. So even their kli is betachlis azakus, and it will be connected us or. But avada mitzad itself it has kelim, and it's mukrach like that. All right, let's go weiter. We're holding on Daf Chav Ches again, and we're holding in the second paragraph now. Esser spheres elu shall or oizin yotze mikushoros betachas his kashrus. These Esser spheres that are coming out of the Asnaim are tied together because again we're only having the challah of the gili, because we're going to see that the lower you go, the more pure there is, and the higher you go, there's more achadus. Because Kaviyachol, if we can say anything about HaKadosh Baruch Hu, is his achadus. So the closer you get to Hashem, the more achadus there is, and Kaviyachol, the farther away you get from Hashem, the more pure there is. Now, so we represent the or that's coming out as a b'china of the ois hey. The umad tam ois hey dafka. What's the pshat that it's dafka ois hey? Now, Well, the reason why it's Tzach Ois Hey Derech Agav is because it's an Anaf of Sag, even though it's an Av of Sag, but Sag parallels Bina, which is the Hey Rishon of the Shem Havaya. But it's going to be represented as a Hey, the letter Hey itself, as opposed to we're going to see when we get to the Chaitim, it'll also be a Hey, but we're going to split up the Hey into a Dalet and a Vav, because there'll be more of a period of that Hey. These are just Ramazim to explain the Or that's coming now. So again, Matam Ois Hey Dafka. What's the Pshat Dafka Ois Hey? B'Ari Yin Zehu. We know that the Esser Spheres are mispashed in terms of 5 Partsufim. Now, we've explained this concept before in passing, the Ian of the Partsuf. It's one of the most critically important concepts in all of the Kabbalah of the Arizal to understand. Akadei Kach, that the Arizal says that the major difference between his system and the systems that came before it was the Gili of the Partsufim. Because he explains that the Shoshalas of Kabbalah, all the way to the days of the Ramban and his Talmud the Rashba, right, had this Inya of Partsufim, even though it was Be'elam. But after that, it was lost, and it wasn't given over until the Arizal himself was Megala 200 years later. The Inya of the Partsufim, as opposed to a Sphira are, just Bekitzer, is that a Sphira is Bechinas Prat, whereas a Partsuf is Bechinas Klal. Because the Partsuf has within it Esser Spheres, but it has all Esser Spheres working together. And the reason why there are 5 of them in every oilam, because they correspond to the Kutshel Yod of the Shem Havaya, and then the Yud Kei Vavki, and they correspond to the 5 stages and 5 steps in every endeavor, as we've spoken about before. The Bechina of Ratzon, the Bechina of the idea or the Machshava, the Hiyuhar or the plans, the doing or the Pu'ula stage, and then the Tachlis. And that's what we call them. Arach Ampim. Arach Ampim is the Bechina of, well, literally it means long face, or something which is, or slow to anger. This is Rachamim Gemurim at this point. This parallels Keser. Abba and Ima are Bechina of Docher and Nukva, a Bechina of Mashpia and Makabel, but the level of the Mayachin. Remember, it's the Bechina of, let's say, the plan. It's the level of the idea and the plan. The idea would be Bechina's Abba, and the Ima would be Bechina the plan. It's kind of like Moshel, like let's say the Tipa Zera of the Ish, which he's the Abba, over here, Lahavdol, and he within him would contain all the necessary ingredients for the Vlad, but Ima has to flesh it out. And there's Bini Yisirid Nitla Nashim, because Ima parallels Bina, because that's the Ian of fleshing out and taking something and breaking it apart into its component parts. So that's what happens over here, because that's when the Zera meets up with the egg, it starts splitting and splitting and splitting and becomes eventually a child. The reason why that is because that's an element of Bina, of splitting apart. Zer Ampim and Nukva. Zer Ampim and Nukva are also Bechina of Docher and Nukva, Bechina of Noisid and Makabel. But Zer Ampim is a lower level than Arach Ampim. You can see that it's related to Arach Ampim because it's more of a Bechinas of Din as opposed to Bechinas of Rachamim. So Zer is small. So small face. Because Arach Ampim is cognate with like Erech Apayim, slow to anger. Whereas Zer Ampim is a Bechina of Din. And Nukva is the Makabel at this point, because Zer Ampim and Nukva are going to be the Bechina of the Pa'ula, and Nukva will be the Bechina of the Maskana stage. So Zer Ampim and Nukva we a lot of times we call the Kli, even though a lot of times we call Nukva the Kloli is the Kli, but sometimes we call Zer Ampim and Nukva the Kli. We call it the Vak or the Zoin, because it's an abbreviation of Zer Ampim, the Zayin, and the and Vidnuk, the Vav Nun, that would be Zoin. And sometimes we call it just the Vak because the Nuk is assumed. So you have to get used to these Lashonis, and you have to know that Vak and Zoin usually are synonymous. The Av and Ima again are the level of Mosin Makabel, but at the level of the Moichin. And Arach Ampim is the B'chinas Ratzain, by which everything is riding on. Now these are stages, and we call these Partsufim, or faces. That's what Partsuf literally means. And we see that the Esser Spheres, what they do is they join together in these 5 Partsufim, because the Bechina of Keser fills the role of Arach Ampim, because that's again the role of Ratzon. Chachma and Bina are the role of Ab and Ima. But Nukva is the Bechina of Malchus. But Zer Ampim is the exception to this role, because Zer Ampim has within it the entire 6 lower spheres of Chesed, Gvur, and Tiferes, and Etz Chayim inside. And the reason why that is because all of those spheres are working together, in terms of in terms of producing the Pa'ula that we want. So therefore, these Esser spheres they group in terms of these 5 different stages, which we call Partsufim. You don't even see them as Esser. All you see them as 5. Dahainu Hey Partsufim Hanal. You see them as the 5 Partsufim, which would be more of his colorless, more of a grouping together. And even these 5 is pure Zumizu. We don't see them as distinct one from another. They come together. In other words, because again, the lower you go, the more pure you're going to have. Again, the higher you go, the more yichud you have. The truth is, this is not a hard concept to understand. Even though we explained before that that's an attribute kavyochol coming closer to Kaddosh Baruch Hu, which is mitzad yichud. But the emes, a person can see this in his own life. You know, if a person is at peace with himself, and everything fits in place, then memela, that's a bechina from tikkun. If a person has a piece here and a piece there, a person is schizophrenic. In one way he acts, in one situation he acts one way, in another situation he acts another way, and he has no briach tikkun running through his life. Memela, such a person is in a matzav of purity, not a matzav of tikkun. That's the reason why the last bracha Shemona Esrei we daven for Shalom, because Shalom is from Lashon Shleimus. Because at that point, because the Shleimus is Ayadei, the Yichud, which is Mashiach everything. Because the Yichud, or the Zivik, actually takes place in Sim Shalom. But Tira Kitsuris Heihi, Dalat Gabi Vav. If you look in Ksav Ashuris, it looks like a dalet on top of a Vav, like he makes a picture here. Misra Beisos is Elahu Eser. So if you add them both up, 4 and 6 makes 10. All right. Now, is base study hapanim b'mokum hazakin. So kaviyachol, if we're going to again Surah Sadim here, but again we're not. Just as to use these masholim, it would be ki'ilu. It would be like both sides of the beard, as the beard was coming down the sides of the face. Now, the hispashtus of the iris of the asnayim are going to go down to the shibolas hazakin, which is right where the chin would be. Even though as they come down, they would come closer one to another as they were flowing down the cheeks till you get down to where the chin is. As we know from the way a beard looks in a person, nonetheless, when we get down, they do not connect completely. Therefore, we said that they don't make kelim. This is important, by the way, and we're going to see in terms of how far the shefa comes. So just to make a sikum, the source of the Oris Naim is Punkti Naim, but the flow of the Or is all the way down to the Shibalas Hazakin. We're going to see Be'ez Hashem when we get into Chaytim. The Oris are going to start from the Chaytim, but they're going to go down to the Chaz of the chest of Adam Kadmon. I'm going to see by the Oris of Peh, they're going to start from the Peh, they're going all the way down to the Tab, or the belly button of Adam Kadmon. And Be'ez Hashem, when we get there, we'll discuss this more in detail. What does it mean where they start from, and what does it mean where they go to? Okay.
Good.